Hello everyone and welcome to the brand new Astroneer Update 20. Now there's a lot of things that I'm very excited to share with all of you, including some brand new vehicles and whatnot. So let's hop right into the very first thing that you need to know about this update, which is there are some new missions. Upon completing to parts unknown, which is to build a small shuttle, add an oxygenator, and a solid fuel thruster, you will unlock the mission Prototype Recovery, which is the first in a chain of missions that will help you unlock some of these new items. The first of which is to go find a vehicle data recorder on Desolo, blow it up, and retrieve one of the brand new items that we will cover, an Exo Chip. So let's hop onto that first. Alright, now as we orbit Desolo, you will notice that there's a brand new beacon that we have not quite seen before, and this is going to be a little light bulb with some shining lights sticking out from it. You're going to want to land as close as possible because this is where the vehicle recorder is going to be found. Now, to prepare for this, I did bring quite a lot of items with me, some of which are going to be spoilers, so I would highly recommend that if you're trying to keep this brand new to kind of skip ahead to some of the item reveal if you're interested in that. But I've also brought a bunch of hydrazine because we're going to be doing quite a bit of traveling. You could certainly bring a vehicle, but because I have quite a lot of resources in this save, I found it easier just to fly there myself. Now that we have arrived at the location of the vehicle data recorder, you can see that there's a little bit of debris scattered around as well as a couple pieces of dynamite. Now this dynamite is very useful because we will need to explode the vehicle data recorder in order to get the Exo Chip that is contained inside, and as you can see I have already prepared for this situation by bringing along a bunch of extra explosive powder. But why do they give us 3 dynamite for a single vehicle data recorder? Well, the reason is because we have a couple other new items that have spawned on the map. These little green markers will represent the location of some new items that we can go make our way over towards in order to also gain the items inside. So as we go and fly over to one of those real quick, I do want to make sure that everyone is aware that the vehicle data recorder does also appear on the map as a point of interest with that little eye and glowing signs all around it and whatnot, so it's very easy to go back and find pretty quickly. The new item is the Exo Cache, which basically functions pretty much the same as a vehicle data recorder, except this is specifically a random spawn. These can appear on pretty much any planet. It's specifically underground, but you will find a couple on the surface near the Exo Cache. So whenever you run across these, it is very valuable to blow them open with some dynamite, because once again, we are going to need these ever scarce Exo Chips that are contained inside. And I will run over here to go grab this other one as well, because we're going to need a couple of Exo Chips. And don't worry, I will share what exactly the Exo Chips are used for when we actually get to that point. So once again, taking the other piece of dynamite that I brought with me, blowing that up, making sure I'm a safe distance away because I've got a lot of hydrazine in my backpack, and then taking our loot with us. And now we're on our very way. So as we make our way back to the Exo recorder, it is probably a good idea to start talking about what these Exo Chips are going to be used for. So with this update, there are a couple new changes to some recipes that will now require the Exo Chip in order to craft. So some of these items that are going to be brand new with the Exo Chip include the large rover, the large shuttle, as well as the auto extractor, the thumper. So a full list of these is appearing on the screen now, so you can kind of take a look at what the recipes are now going to require. And this is going to be a little bit of an interesting change because there are definitely some later tier items that are very, very good, but are now going to be a little bit harder to get just because you will need these Exo Chips in order to actually craft them in the first place. But this is all going to come down to how scarce these chips actually are. At first it was a little bit difficult to find these chips, which meant that it was going to be very difficult to craft large rover chains or a significant amount of thumpers. However, it seems like the spawns have been increased as the update has become a little bit closer to release, so hopefully there's going to be a little bit better of a balance of getting those late game items as well as finding enough Exo Chips to actually craft them. Now, as I mentioned, we are back to our vehicle data recorder, which is the specific objective we are here to complete. So I placed the last dynamite on top of it, set that off to explode, and we have completed the prototype recovery mission. Now once again, this does drop an Exo Chip, so be sure to pick that up because you need, again, as many as you can find. Taking a look at our missions real fast, as I open up the right button, and I completely missed that one, we are going to have a brand new mission after the prototype recovery, and this is called Tracing the Transmission. After we have completed the vehicle data recorder on Desolo, we now need to go find the mat and give it an Exo Chip. Luckily, very similar to the vehicle data recorder, the mat is now marked by our next point of interest, so let's jump cut as we travel on over there. Alrighty, as we were traveling to the mat from the location of the vehicle data recorder, I do want to point out that I did come across 2 other Exo Caches, which I blew up and I got 2 more Exo Chips from, just to give you a little bit of a rough idea of how quickly you can come across some of these on the surface. But continuing the missions that we're specifically taking a look at, this is where we start to enter a little bit of the gray area between what's a spoiler and what's a helpful bit of information. Because now is where we need to supply the mat with a bit of resources in order to complete these missions. So the first one is just to give it an Exo Chip. So here we are passing an Exo Chip into the mat, which it will analyze and then complete the mission for us. Completing this mission, however, does not yet give us anything new. Instead, we get 2 new missions, both for Desolo. We need to provide 2 copper and 2 zinc for one mission, as well as 2 plastic and 2 aluminum for the other mission. Now once again, I have come prepared with all of these resources just to speed up the completion of these missions, so we can show you guys what exactly comes of them at the end. So here's the first mission complete, and now I'll supply the compounds that will complete the second mission. So there we go, there are our 2 missions that are now completed, and we get one final one, which is to activate the mat and send it off for a brand new schematic. So let's do that real fast, and we'll watch as the mat kind of has a little bit of a mental breakdown. Once the mat has exploded, we will now have the mission onboarding complete, which we will be able to turn in at a landing pad to receive a hoverboard, a QT RTG, as well as the schematic to actually make the hoverboard. That, however, will have to wait because we are going to head to Vesania to do the next part of the brand new missions. This will be to once again repeat the same general process to find the vehicle data recorder, blow it up, and retrieve the Exo Chip before we then go find the mat that is specific to Vesania itself. Just like on Desolo, I did pass quite a few of the Exo Caches on my way here. However, because I know I have the predetermined number of Exo Chips necessary to just complete these missions but not necessarily craft anything, I have decided not to pick them up, but it probably would have netted me maybe 5 or so more Exo Chips. Once again, we have landed, however, at the vehicle data recorder, which also appears as a point of interest beacon on your compass, and it's going to follow, as I mentioned, the exact same quest line of blowing it up with dynamite, gathering an Exo Chip, and then going to find the map. So here we go, we blow that up, we grab our Exo Chip, and we got actually lucky this time. This one gave us 2. I have seen mats that give you up to 3 before, but I do not know how consistent it is to get that many items from it. So let me pop all these on real fast, and then we'll take a look at where the direction of our mat is. So our mat is going to be quite a little bit of a fly over there, so let's use the magic of editing to warp real fast. Now that we have found the mat on Vesania, we basically just need to start it the exact same way by providing an Exo Chip to complete the first mission. So going and taking a look at our missions, we see that bootstrapping is now complete, and we can start to take a look at what resources this is going to want. Once again, I have come prepared with all of these, so we're going to need 2 hydrogen, 2 nitrogen, 2 graphite, 2 titanium, and 2 tungsten in order to complete this. Once again, I have pretty much all of these sitting over here. The gases do seem to take a little bit longer than otherwise, probably just because there are technically 5 units of items inside of it. And I'm going to step back because that appears very loud in my ear right now, and I just want to get a little bit quieter as we decide to feed it all of its necessary resources. So with that, we have the gas request completed. We can start passing in some of the other resources that are needed as well, such as the titanium, graphite, and then the tungsten to follow. And there we go. Those are the resources that are needed for the first set of mat requirements. And I say first set because I already know that we're going to need another set, which is 2 pieces of silicone and 2 pieces of tungsten carbide. Once again, I have become prepared with all of this, so we can just pop these right in and we'll be good to go. If I hadn't misplaced my other tungsten carbide, that is. There we go, with the not yet last, but with the next to last completed requirements, we can then get a few more bytes and then move on to the last piece, which requires 3 Exo Chips. So I know that I mentioned before how you will need quite a lot of Exo Chips, and that's because these missions are a little bit greedy for them. They do require 5 to complete in total, which is no small task, especially if you're going to need some of these Exo Chips to also start working on building large rovers and thumpers and large shuttles and whatnot. So the Exo Chips, as I said, are going to be very valuable. As with the last one, we can send it off and it will go through its usual spinning and exploding routine. So we're just going to make sure we get a little bit away from it there. Apologies for missing the explosion there. I had something come up with my PC that was a little bit of an error. But that being said, we have completed the official end of the mat list. All we need to do is head back to our landing pad and we can finally claim the hoverboard and hoverboard schematic, as well as the new VTOL and VTOL schematic. So with that, let's pop back to Silva real fast. Alright, now that we are back at our main base, we can begin playing with these brand new items. And let's start off with the hoverboard. So upon completing the mission, you will get a QT RTG as well as the hoverboard personal mobility device. Now, as the tooltip suggests, you double tap it with the spacebar to equip it, and it will draw 1 unit of power. So taking a look at how this operates, double tapping it allows you to then bring out a little bit of a hoverboard and kind of run around and cruise along the ground. Now, I do have to say, pairing this with some thrusters of some kind is really fun. It is suggested to do this with the jump jet as well for a quick, rapid extra boost and whatnot. And honestly, this item is pretty fun to play with. Double tap it again to take it off, and you are all good to go back on your feet. Now, as I said, the hoverboard is really, really fun to play around with. Unfortunately, I don't know how practical this is going to be, just because you don't have a lot of inventory space to manage. You can pick up a vehicle if you hop into the hoverboard as you're flying. That allows you to carry something while you're moving around. However, when it comes to storage-wise, you don't get the versatility that you usually get when you get a large rover. So unfortunately, I'm not entirely sure how much use the hoverboard is legitimately going to be able to see. You will run out of oxygen because it does not provide unlimited oxygen unless you carry around an oxygenator, or a portable oxygenator that is, at which point you need 2 QT RTGs, which takes up a little bit of backpack slots, and yeah, there's a lot of trade-offs for it. But that being said, it is very, very fun, and there are going to be a lot of creative uses for it. So while it might not be the best for a normal playthrough, it is still going to be very fun to play around with. Now, the other item that we do have, which is brand new, is the VTOL. So let's call that on down. Now, the VTOL is nice because it does come with 2 cans of hydrazine, and this is basically, it's a flying vehicle. I don't know what more you could want from this. It does have 2 tier 2 slots for you to attach a little bit of storage if you need to, as well as 2 auxiliary slots that you can fire things off of, like fireworks or other things like that. Upon entering the vehicle, you will have the ability to either exit or take off, so double tapping the spacebar will allow you to take off into this flying mode. You are able to ascend with the spacebar, descend with shift, and you can basically just fly around at really whatever altitude you wish. And this vehicle, once again, is really, really cool. You do draw some fuel when you are just hovering in air, but it is very, very minimal, and it will not draw as much as if you were obviously moving around. Now, landing is also pretty straightforward. All you have to do is basically get close to the ground, and it will auto-initiate a landing sequence, and then you can basically hop right out. Very, very smooth controls, and I really like how well this handles. That being said, how usable is this? I think that this is going to be very valuable for having thumpers spread out across a planet, because you can carry some some medium storage canisters as a tier 2 item that you can go swap them out on thumpers and then bring them back. So I think this is going to be very good for doing various recon or trying to find some some zebra balls or some checkers or some Leos. Not to mention it's also kind of fun, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's obstacle courses or games that come out of it. But when it comes to completing gateways or gathering scrap or whatnot, this might not be the most efficient vehicle. But once again, very similar to Hoverboard, it is very, very fun to play around with and definitely a welcome addition to the game. Now, the last new item that I want to cover is the leveling block. Now, the leveling block has been added to survival as so many people have been waiting for it. The leveling block, however, is not going to give you the exact same thing that you normally get in creative. It costs 1 soil canister to make, and you actually get the soil canister back, which is very, very nice. But basically, this leveling block is going to once again, act pretty much mostly the same to creative, except you only get 10 uses out of it. So it's going to align to the same voxel grid, and you do have to use it and whatnot, but you only get to use it a limited number of times. This is, once again, pretty self-explanatory. It's just going to make it so that you don't get infinite soil, which is, pretty self-explanatory. Nothing too special there, but for the most part, it functions pretty much the exact same. Now, that being said, while I have covered all of the new items, there are a couple other changes that are worth mentioning. I did talk about the Exo Chips and the new cost of auto extractors, shuttles, and the large rovers. This is going to really kind of have to settle out a little bit because it's going to depend on how quickly people are able to find Exo Chips. They might find that is a little bit of a bottleneck, or they might find that bringing along a little bit of explosive powder will be sufficient to getting all the Exo Chips that they need. I will say I passed up a few of the Exo nodes as I was going through these missions, so I might have 4 or so extra Exo Chips had I stopped to pick those up. But for now I do have 2, which would still be enough to get the rover, or 1 segment of the large rover and maybe the large shuttle, or just help for exploration to find other Exo Chips along the way. Also worth mentioning, scrap has generally seen a universal increase. So as you start to shred things of all sizes, you will be getting a little bit of extra scrap back from them, which is going to be very useful. And there are also going to be some changes to the large debris structures that we find throughout the world. The large debris structures will generally have more useful and better items in them, which is going to be a great, great change. As sometimes we pass up the items because they're pretty useless, but now they're actually going to have some meaning to them. Another little bit of a change that's probably not going to be highlighted by very many people, but I find very, very useful because it has killed me many times, is sliding will now have a little bit of a difficult time triggering on less strict surfaces, so we don't really get much of a slide going here. But when we transition to a more steep surface, braking has been heavily increased. All you need to do is hold backwards and you come to a stop pretty quickly, which honestly is going to definitely save my life many, many times. And the final thing that I do wish to share, but unfortunately I cannot show off, is because the Exo Shop does not actually have them in them. But in the Exo Store, apparently there are going to be a set of visors that will be free for everyone. The visors are going to be for Pride Month, which is going to be very, very cool, and I'm really excited to see what those are going to look like, and I'm happy that they're making them free for everyone, which is going to be very, very big. And as I mentioned that was the last thing I want to mention, I lied. There was one other thing that I had forgot to mention, and I'm looking for my Exo request platform, but unfortunately I do not have one made. There will be a new limited time event. It's going to be a new repeat event of an old automation one, where you can get some of the same materials that are the same cosmetics that you did then, but as well as getting 2 new cosmetics for doing the event. So that will probably be covered in a different video at a different point in time, but for now, those are pretty much the key parts of this update and a little bit of a walkthrough of how to complete the quest line. Now, for all the information, definitely go check out the release notes, because the release notes will contain all of the extra information that I was not able to cover here, as well as bug fixes and maybe 1 or 2 other slight changes that kind of go under the radar, but will affect the game slightly. So for now, have a good rest of your day, evening, and or night, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you soon when we check out that repeat but new limited time event. Take it easy, everyone.